runs of natural weather, the rain and so on and so forth, and with the disruptions that we've seen recently, it threatens greatly our food security. And I think the key aspect of the declaration as well is the women, putting the women at the center of our agriculture, because they do the bulk of the work, especially in the rural areas.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, that's why we are here, that is the way we are framing it as a theme. And let me request Ms. Penny Nanaiga to come and make brief remarks, and then we shall now launch our project with the support of the Commissioner. There was a time, one time we invited, I think it was Honorable Nsababuturo, we invited him to launch a product called, it was exposing the corrupt and the non-corrupt. It was something about that. He came and launched the book. And after launching the book, because he was among the people who are not corrupt, but one of the people whom he supports was mentioned inside. So he launched the product. It was in the news. Then the next day he called and he said, you called me to launch this book. I was not aware. How? So that's why we are requesting, we have mentioned these things so that by the time you come and launch the book, you know what we are talking about. So Penny, please come and submit.
Yes, thank you, Gilbert, for the good introduction. I think I will not have to speak a lot because Gilbert has said it all. Yes, for the Maputo Manifesto, it was launched in 2024, and it demands for a feminist state justice. It adopted the feminist lens on debt and development, recognizing that the fight against debt is intrinsically linked to the fight for gender and equality and social justice. Giving a brief background, we see that the African economic challenges disproportionately affect women, particularly when the continent's global debt has surged to the 1.8 trillion. And we see this is a long-term implication that usually affects the critical sectors of the economy, like health, education, whereby we see even when it comes to the lifespan, because this is something that takes a long, like it's a long-term thing, and you see when it comes to the life expectancy, we see that on a continent basis, we see that women have a higher life expectancy compared to men. So it will be us who will be being affected by these adverse effects of the high debt burden. When it comes to Uganda, we see that Uganda's public debt has risen sharply, rising to Uganda shillings 106.97 by December 2024, of which this is 52.1% of the GDP. Like, basing on the benchmark by the World Bank, we see that if at all a developing country exceeds 50% of the threshold, that this country has high chances of defaulting. And that's when you come up. Yes, Commissioner, you say you agree with us that yes, we are not yet there, but we are peeping. We are in that door. So when it comes to debt servicing, it consumes 32.8% of our domestic revenue, leaving minimal space for public investment in critical sectors like health, education, and and some of these things disproportionately affect women, who account nearly 90% of the informal workspace and often assume the roles of primary caregivers and educators in their households. This diversion of funding results in worse health outcomes, higher school dropout rates for girls, and overall welfare. The long-term underspending on education driven by the debt burdens has led to the continued neglect of women's education in Africa, resulting in high rates of illiteracy and early marriages. And these are also backed by our cultural norms in some of the regions, whereby we see that if at all a girl is educated up to probably to campus or university, we can see that they'll be like, this is it's taken as a wastage of money. They do not enforce it. They do not enforce the woman being up there. And also we see that women are often excluded from the financial allocation, with only 37% of them with a bank account in sub-Saharan Africa. I think all women here, we are one of the chosen among the 37% to have one. Is it true? Or there is to have a bank account? Yes. The austerity measures often restrict women's access to essential resources like shelters, counseling, and legal aid, which are vital for shaping abusive situations. The reduction of these support systems increase women's vulnerability and isolation, creating significant barriers to reporting incidences of gender-based violence. The global financial architecture established post-World War II to serve the interests of industrialized nations that has not evolved to meet the needs of developing countries, leading to systematic inequalities that favor wealthier countries. We see that women in these communities, particularly in the informal sector, face the socio-economic pressures of budget cuts and they're taking the lion's share of the budget. We said in financial year 2025, we see that almost 50% of our budget was going to debt servicing. And we see that even when it comes to health, education, social protection, for health it was 3%, education it was 2 point something, and then social protection it's usually 1 or less than 1% of the total budget. So when it comes to the context the context I've mentioned above, it highlights the challenges that are cuts in the budget allocation for education, health, and public investment, long-term underspending on education, illiteracy rates, and early marriages, austerity measures, shelter, counseling, and legal aid, exclusion from financial allocations, lack of gender-sensitive budgeting and data on women's economic contributions and tax payments, outdated post-World War II global financial architecture, all those and the rest affect women at large. By integrating a feminist economics into the discussions of AfCoDD, FIDIN and other partners sought to propose alternative frameworks that include advocacy for inclusive policies that genuinely reflect the experiences and needs of all members of society, particularly the marginalized groups, ensuring that African women are not just passive participants in economic decisions, but active agents capable of influencing policies that affect their lives. With that, we came up with a manifesto that was issued during AfCoDD 4, which was based on the need to build a feminist state agenda. It advanced short-term actions, which are specific research on policies and practices impeding female advancement, campaign to abolish laws and cultural practices that perpetuate gender inequality, ensure global engagement and transformative agenda, propose and implement a measurable action plan. Then the commitment was to adopt a feminist lens on debt and development, the nexus between gender equality and social justice. And some of the recommendations and the demands for the manifesto were to emphasize social protection system, investment in labor markets, and creation of employment opportunities, advocate for debt cancellation and restructuring. African governments should form a unified front in international negotiations, adoption of policies that dismantle patriarchal and neocolonial structures, establishment of robust regional institutions. Africa should assert its role as a rule maker, not as a rule taker. That's the fact that we were colonized most times. Of the policies we develop usually are set by the developed countries, and usually there's limited room for us to impose our own policies. Then investment in women leadership, recognize their stories and contributions. Women should continue to occupy space and access more resources to tell their stories, avoid political and economic systems based on male-dominated frameworks. There is need to increase women's representation in political and economic decision-making, including debt and development decisions. There are few instances whereby we see a woman making a decision when it comes to if at all we are able to borrow from IMF or World Bank, what will this debt do for us? Most times we borrow to do infrastructure, but there's limited room to invest in women activities. The inclusive electoral systems and political parties, with political parties reforming tax and fiscal systems, promote economies of care, equitable access to resources, opportunities, and benefits. With that, I would like to I would take the honor to invite our Executive Director, Mr. Patrick Tumwebaze, and the Commissioner, Data and Cash, Christine Biringiro from ACU, then Juliet Akello from NGO Forum, and anyone else putting on a t-shirt so that we can launch the Maputo Manifesto officially in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have hands, please put them together for Penny. Thank you, Madam Penny. What she has said, while the Maputo Declaration is broad, it was about allocation and the rest. But Mr. Commissioner, this is just an extract, and it's just a manifesto to save those people who sat in Maputo requested that we need to pursue the feminist agenda. Let's look at data and other things, the feminist component and the like, as he has highlighted. So don't fear, but otherwise, those who are in agreement that the Maputo Manifesto should be pursued, please come and join the Commission in launching. And it is not an ambush. This is not an ambush. And if you are wearing a t-shirt like either white or pink, please come and be together with please, Esther, come and join. Westminster, please come. Those who agree with that, you can come and be part of the picture and witness. Okay, if you come, you will get an opportunity. If you come, you'll get an opportunity of having a copy of that document. Mr. Muhereza, please say something.
There is one here.
Okay. Okay. Okay, let it be gender balance.
We shall send that side.
It's okay. I've been asked to assure the Commissioner that this manifesto has nothing contradictory, maybe, to what the positions that he holds. It's just to say that as we plan, especially at a country level, we should have some of these lenses as we implement our policy on debt management. So we are just basically saying that we've made commitments, mainly at a continental level. Some of these commitments have even come at a regional level, our mothers, our sisters, and ourselves, the young ones. So I don't know if I still qualify for young, but I'll represent them. Yes. So don't worry, Commissioner, you're in very safe hands. Thank you.
So what are we supposed to do?
Gilbert.
So we request you to hold one pair of scissors. So we are going to request him to cut the tape in form of what? I think you can stand closer here, you can hide it, then you can come in and go in behind. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you. So you can get a pen and sign, and every other person can get an opportunity to put their signature on that manifesto.
What is the marker?
There are 2 markers. There are a number of markers. You can come and put your signature there. Okay. Everybody will get an opportunity to sign on that, and details of that are 1 on the placard that is going to be given to you, and then 2, there's also a write-up, a handout which shall also be given to you. And as they sign, everybody can feel free, even at a later time, to take that picture. And now, as you continue to sign, we are going to request the control room to display a movie on public date. So please, if you are done, you can sit and then give an opportunity for others to put their signature. And please, you can even use the marker that is even more clear. Thank you. So, Mr. Commissioner, we thank you so much for honoring us and giving those very educative remarks. We shall require to get those copies of the document, the statistics, so that the other gentleman who was questioning can be satisfied. 2, we shall visit your website and get more of that information. 3, we shall always be willing and interested to work with you. Control room, please give us the video. Thank you.
killer because you don't know that I don't want to.
us down below. This now our war. We know we move to the right. We know we move to the left. How we got to this place, we don't even understand. Time they run, but we get slow. We go heavy, now I'm not through. This is now our reality. We the best of our sanity. Yeah.
holding me together. Tricycle. Sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? Sir, somebody should get a stop walking on finger to take a tricycle so we can take it to the hospital.
You see that bottle already there. Now the portion of the time maneuver. When did they get the inside? Come with the job of portion of what now? You see all this goes there. Why is he on this guy? He's very crazy.
You boys, right? Let's take it to the hospital. Somebody should get a tricycle so we can take it to the hospital.
Push us down.
It's an accident. Oh my God, this is oxygen. Then get him an oxygen. It's not oxygen. The medicine unit is filled up already. Some patients are even like stretchers on the floor. He was involved in an accident and he needs medical attention immediately, please.
Okay. The situation here is so overwhelming and we don't have bed space. I need you guys to take me to a private hospital. Yes, space here, we don't have space.
I'm a teacher! I'm not being paid for it!
was talking about issues that the honorable who was sitting in the chair where Honorable Mukitale has sat. Probably those are some of the ills they were talking about. I know some people may not be movie fans, but briefly, it encapsulates issues of public debt and how citizens should be involved. We have reached the final session of today's conference, and now it is constitution of a panel. We were supposed to have 4 panelists, but one has already given his submission. That's Commissioner Paul, and he has addressed us, including the topic which is highlighted there. We have another topic. We have Mr. Aloysius Kitengo. Please come and be at the panel. He's going to address us on some important issue. Ms. Christine Biringiro, the program, yes? Yeah? She will do. Okay. As they come, so we have Christine Biringiro. Please welcome Aloysius with a clap. Order does not matter. Christine Biringiro works with Anti-Corruption Coalition of Uganda as the program manager, and she will address us on the topic confronting corruption to unlock reparations and debt justice. That's during this conference. Then Aloysius is going to talk about confronting Aloysius is talking about the topic of global economic injustice as a hindrance to genuine development sovereignty, and he comes from CIATINI, Southern African Trade and Negotiation Institute. And let us also welcome Honorable Stephen Mukitale, the former member of parliament from Bulisa. I have heard some people calling him, is it Dialogue? National Dialogue? Mr. National Dialogue, you are welcome for this dialogue, and he's going to address us on the topic confronting historical injustices, reparations, and contemporary control in Uganda's economic trajectory. Honorable Mukitale, you're welcome. Please welcome him with a hand clap. So as they take their seats, there is something we have been struggling with, that we have partners with whom we have arranged this conference. They are called AfCoDD. AfCoDD in full is African Forum on Data and Development, and they should have also been on the panel, but they are not, and they are with us virtually. So this time we have sorted the technology, and in the presence of these panelists, the first panelist now to submit will be Madame Fidelite from AfCoDD, who will give remarks that open this session. Madame Fidelite, please, you are on the mic. Thank you. Increase volume. We cannot hear you, Fidelite. Please, you unmute. Unmute your mic. Fidelite, work with Janice to unmute your mic and give your submission. We shall have to be patient with you, but Deleted, I think. Eh? Sorry. Okay, so is it fine now? Yes, we hear you.
Awesome.
Yes, whoever in your fidelity, we can also speak in your language and say Asante sana. Another hand clap for fidelity. Please keep tuning in. We shall have a number of questions and comments on your submission, and we shall take all the comments and questions on to the panel after the whole panel has given theirs. We have 3 people in front of us, and we are giving each 5 minutes, but for Honorable Mukitari, because he missed something, we shall add him a little more, and we shall give him an opportunity to tell us about the national dialogue that he wants us to be part of, if at all it's on date or any other thing. Half a minute. So, Honorable Mukitari, please tell us, how should we confront historical injustices, reparations, and contemporary control in Uganda's economic trajectory?
I want to appreciate Uganda Network, AfCoDD, and its partners for being consistent on this matter of debt and the cost of having a debt crisis. Distinguished participants, I would want to thank you. I am now a board member, National Planning Authority. We are looking at the 10-fold growth strategy, and that is only possible if we have a discretionary resource to be able to finance. My first assignment was to make sure that the NDPII is in place. Now it is there. Yesterday, Minister of Finance, I campaigned finance on behalf of NDPII to present the budget of close to 72 trillion you are hearing about. But of course, one of what I can call the risk analysis is that over 32% of that financing goes to debt servicing. So I would want to appreciate Uganda Network and those other allies, including AfCoDD, where we gave an early warning as early as 2010, 2013. The time is going to come when the trade-off will be too much. I remember at that time when we had Minister Suruma, when we used to talk about what will be the cost of this loan when we reach those levels which are not sustainable. And indeed, as you can see, at a time when we had concessional loans, we would say 40 years to pay plus 10 grace is a long period. But the architecture today, Karuma, which is just beginning to give us power, is already due for repayment. The Interior Express Highway is already due for repayment. The airport is due for repayment. And we've heard of cases in Zambia where people are beginning to ask questions of sovereignty. So you don't only forego the money which would go for health and education, as AfCoDD is saying, you even risk losing your sovereignty. So that's why we should approach the issue of debt with that consistency which Debt Network has provided. Of course, time has vindicated some of us who were saying it is dangerous to continue borrowing, more so when you are not sure that the repayment capacity is provided for. We should even get more worried when we are getting into the Trump madness. Because one of the reasons why we end up in debt is that we don't have enough resources at home. We have limitation in domestic revenue mobilization. But how do you mobilize revenue when the international world order, the international economic world order has been to the effect that multinationals are the ones making money and exploiting back to their principles? You are aware, in the close to last 25 years, the money makers have been the telecoms, but they are foreign owned. So they take back all the money, the profit. We have foreign banks, they take back the profit. The roads we have been making, the loans we are making for roads, the contractors are foreign, they take back the money. With very little technology transfer, that even now when we want to do road maintenance, we have to look for them for road maintenance. I'm just from another meeting of GKMA, where World Bank is to help us to fix our roads. So the Bretton Woods institution, the World Bank and IMF, which introduced to us in around 94-95 that we should outsource, roll back the state, restructure, liberalize, private sector led. We are seeing the consequence is that we have given our economies to foreign multinationals, taking all the profit, and we remain with nothing, and at the same time they are saying we are giving you the loans. So the spirit of reparation, therefore, and restitution, if I can use another vocabulary, becomes just fitting. Because where we should have made the money in the last 25 years, we have actually been helping the foreign companies. At NPA, we are now saying, and government strategy in the tenfold growth is the Artemis, including agro-processing. You don't get even 5% of the coffee value. You are exporting everything in raw form. Right from the crops, the coffees and the teas, but also minerals. Even now, the excitement you are having about oil, we are taking crude to Tanga. We are not talking of refined oil yet. Thanks to government, 3 weeks ago, there is an investor from the Arab world who is promising to do for us a refinery. But that's what we should have done simultaneously, crude oil and, because to change the structure of this economy, to be able to get the value we want, the tenfold, it is not in the crude oil export to Tanga. It is in the refinery, which brings the petrochemicals, which brings an industrial park. That's where the future is. So indeed, the world order has been to our disadvantage. You are borrowing as beggars when actually you have been exporting wealth, when you're exporting jobs. So that's really the first thing we should do. That awareness is lacking. We are the ones who have given them this money. Yes, China is not a colonial master. He can say he's a newcomer and he gives infrastructure. But China has given us loans with contractors attached. So there is that injustice. You get a loan with a contractor. There is even contractor financing. No concessional loan whatsoever, short-term loans. Now in simple financial management, you don't have to be a chartered accountant. That the moment you finance long-term gestation projects with short-term financing, it's called a mismatch. So from day one, you've got a problem. You are not borrowing to import containers and you sell in 2 weeks. You are not borrowing to do something quick fix. You are borrowing for a road, which return on investment is about 25 years. But your payment term is of 10 years. How do you fix that? So I'm talking about bad agreements. We've gone into bad agreements. For me, I knew, because nowhere in my record as a member of parliament did I not warn? And that's how I became an ally of Uganda Debt Networks, 18 and others. Because we knew where we are investing is not tourism, is not private sector, is not value addition in agriculture. So how on earth do you expect to pay this money? At one time I warned in Parliament, possibly, and for me that's my equivalent of reparations and restitution, the justice we could get, because we benefited more than 20 years ago in the HIPIC. So I said, possibly we are taking this money knowing there will be HIPIC. Possibly Trump should continue being mad, so that even the World Bank itself can collapse. And they say the debts, you don't have to be forgiven. So the HIPIC, highly indebted countries, we were beneficiaries of that. There also multilateral debt relief, MDI, we also benefited from that. So before we do engagement of saying this of Burkina Faso, that in 3 years by saying France don't take the minerals, they are selling their minerals more than 15 times more, and they are getting road equipment, agro industry, they are getting all sorts of things. In only 3 years of saying pack and go. 3 years. So instead, who is a donor? My president has used it many times, but I think the technocrats and bureaucrats have not helped him. Because the president from the very beginning has, even this oil he had said over his dead body it will not go in crude. And that's why I keep praying, because they have made him now, it's going crude. It was not supposed to go crude. So, for me, the reparation, the restitution, and fighting this injustice could be by, they used to call it debt cancellation, but is it supposed to be called debt cancellation? It is supposed to be a reparation that we have been cheating you for too long, we now accept. But can we redefine the architecture of loans? Because sometimes I don't want us to take that excuse. In the Runyoro there is Rwekwaso Mwana Nyarire. The developed north, the lenders are not responsible for developing our economies. We are responsible. So why on earth do we sign such bad agreements? Umeme is going. In Parliament in 2000 and, if I still remember correctly, 8 and 9, we asked for that Umeme agreement. Whether Umeme was leaving or we were winding up, we had to pay. We found that at the very beginning, it had just done like 4 years. So who signed such an agreement? So we knew, we are lucky they have gone up 20 years. But even if they had gone earlier, we were supposed to have had money in extra account to pay them. But we have since known that Umeme has been managed by Ugandans. And NSF was still owning the biggest part. So why don't we encourage such Ugandanization of some of these efforts? Because there is management buyout. Now UEDCL has rushed in very fast. Every time I'm going to Ntinda in the evening there is a blackout. So what has happened when we have dimmed power? Bujagali at 250, whether you consume it or not, you pay for it. So you who can afford the yaka, unlike my grandmother in the village, you are paying for the power you don't consume. And it's a matter which goes into so many sectors. So when the cost of power is high, it is going into the cost of doing business. It's going to affect job creation. It's going to affect how many companies are collapsing. And therefore, a vicious cycle of depending on the North. And that's why I'm happy with Trump, who has decided to facilitate the process of the American empire to collapse. Of course, China is very ready to take over, and other economies. But where we would be going is to export refined goods. if they don't block our markets, because now we are going into a new world order which is very unpredictable. You are not very sure if you add value, will you be accepted in that market, because the man says they can do everything. So the issue of the comparative advantage is now no more. The man can start to give protectionism and do everything. Projections, a bigger part of the world will be from Africa. So we are the future. We are the market. But we must posture ourselves for that. In terms of technology transfer, preparedness for mineral beneficiation, adding value on our products. And that's why China is here. China did not come here just to make roads. China has made markets long. Every company in China has R&D. They have already read into what I was in China early years of 2005, 6, 7. And I used to go in some of these companies which I'm seeing today. Their R&D knew what was going to happen. So you are the new frontier. You are the new market. I think very soon they may want to become citizens. So as we deal with that reparation question and the injustice, the agreements, we sign them ourselves. My Minister of Finance once said, I actually signed the airport agreement without knowing that level of mistakes we have made as a country, and we should own them up. Sometimes I don't want us to blame. If you go and sign a loan with a bank tomorrow, saying I'm not putting this property as a collateral, but I have sold it to you, the money lender away. I don't want to give you into details what's happening in the press today and yesterday. The money lender signed that you have sold me the property. So we need to be careful. So I really want to appreciate the Uganda Debt Network. I have said you gave an early warning. You have been consistent. So those who at one time thought you were anti-government, I think now are realizing that you are not. Of course, some of us had occupational hazards of having the audacity of saying so. We became rebels. But I'm happy I'm now a planner of the whole country. Possibly you have to first pay a price to know that what you are saying was correct. Going forward, we should now be more careful, because we don't have. And let us not only talk, I'm ending by defining how the loans, capitalism, again the injustice, there is a way they reconfigure themselves. They are now telling you PPP. Nobody told us that PPP with Jagari was worse than a loan. Karuma project is 10 times much cheaper than Ujagari. But we're told PPP was very sweet. We are taking oil now to Tanzania and we are saying it's not a debt. We are calling it a PSA, Production Sharing Agreement Recoverable Cost. Have you added it on the debt stock? It's going to be $15 billion. And you are saying it's not a debt. Now we have domestic borrowing, crowding out private sector profit. Only a lazy bank manager can make losses. You don't have to lend a poor Birawa who has a risk of administration and risk of failing to pay and the cost of administration. You just have to buy government instruments and you make profit. So all those companies are declaring profit. The money is not made from. They just give your deposits to buy government instruments, and that's the business. You know, you'll survive in Uganda. Because that's very clear profit, just there granted. Free of risk, free of cost of administration. So, on top of calling it a loan, where we have failed to pay it for the last 7 years, we have borrowed words like rollover, rescheduling, refinancing, but you are paying interest without paying the principal. I want some government in the budget we presented yesterday. There is more commitment, at least, to pay another debt called domestic arrears. You cannot increase domestic revenue mobilization when the same taxpayer, you are not paying him. Government is putting quite some money in clearing, and we are looking the next 2-3 years to have cleared domestic arrears. But again, the proactive way is to, as per the law, Public Finance Management Act, there's no accounting officer, no vote supposed to commit if we are going to remain, without domestic arrears. And I wish we had more pension funds so that we have long-term finance. So the solution would be going into areas of pension funds being used for infrastructure financing. I would rather be indebted to the workers who save with NSSF in Ujagadi than having the foreign companies. So we really need to think on innovative financing outside the traditional methods of financing. That's where the solution is. So the debt stock actually is not just the foreign debt. You must add PPPs, you must add the recoverable costs, there is contractor financing, and even there is another one called pre-financing. For all the EXIM loans for, like, for example, oil roads, you don't just look at the interest rate which they declared. They were also pre-financing. It took us 2-3 years to bring that money to find the insurance for EXIM Bank. But the contractors went ahead to provide money at 3%, which is an additional cost. I want to thank you so much for this new angle. I've liked the new angle of looking at this debt, the reparations, and the injustice. I pray that we get another HIPIC, another MDR, because the truth, we cannot afford this debt. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Mukitali. I was checking, and I noticed somewhere they said there are 5 types of reparations. There is restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. Are we able to answer some of those? Probably. We should commit ourselves not to repeat, but every other time they forgive us, then we do what? We go back there. And do they owe us a living anyway? Got it. So I think let's do gender balance. We are going to request Madam Christine Byiringiro Ayebazibwe, the Program Manager of Anti-Corruption Coalition, to tell us how to confront corruption and unlock reparations and debt justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilbert. And I'll begin with just a few quick facts about corruption in Uganda today. So as we stand, I actually got to know recently that we hit the 100 trillion mark in regard to our public debt, and we have already hit the 10 trillion mark for corruption in terms of the resources that we lose to corruption every year. So automatically that means that 10% of our debt is lost to corruption. That is number one. But it is also a fact that about 90 to 99 billion, which is less than 1%, is recovered collectively by all the anti-corruption institutions, which is one, concerning, but two, worrying. It is also a fact that the Corruption Perception Index for 2024 rated us at 140 out of 180 countries, which is a score of 26%, but also that we have not, in the history of this CPI, gone above 29%. So just imagine your child goes to school and brings their report cards, and they are consistently getting below 29% in class. So this performance is really not good. But it is also a fact that we increasingly are seeing a weak political will to fight corruption, especially as we head in this context that we are headed. We envisage that the fight against corruption is going to be watered down somewhat, and we have already seen this. It is also a fact, there are quite a number of facts, ladies and gentlemen, that increasingly as a government, but also as duty bearers, we have now resorted to fight the institutions that are fighting corruption, if you get me, to defeat their fight against corruption by using supplementary budgets, but also the classified expenditure budget to promote acts that we view as corrupt actions. Increasingly, we see supplementary budgets coming out and envelopes handed over to members of supplementary, and part of it is going to classified expenditure. And while, you know, some MPs are coming out and denying, no, you see, you know, there's no money for MPs, 100, we come out boldly. The head of state comes out, he's bold. He does not deny that, you know, there's this money that has gone to these legislators. So for 529 individuals, and each is getting 100 million, we feel these are wrong investments. We are misprioritizing as a country when we pick debt and we invest it or we throw it in such ventures. Then we have repercussions in terms of when the time for paying back comes. And so even as we speak about reparations, we go out there, we have, Honorable, we have time and again, of course, advocated for